What's going on, YouTube universe? Welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, where we discuss everything Australian rules football, and in fine form to, follow through with continuity, I have left selecting my tips for another round of football to the last minute, so we need to get through this bitch quick. But before we move on, you just need to hold your horses just a little bit, because we need to reflect on round 8, and I'm going to not so humbly brag about the fact that it was a perfect tipping round for myself. 9 out of 9. We tipped Hawthorn in the Thursday night blockbuster against Collingwood, and that ended up in a draw, so regardless of who you tipped, you're going to get the tick, but we did go Hawthorn on the side of 17 points. Could have been and should have been a hell of a lot more on Hawthorn's side, given the scoring shots they had, the inside 50s they had, the disposal dominance that they had, but Collingwood found a way to get some quality from the quantity that they had and really stuck fat. I was very impressed by Collingwood on the night. We tipped Fremantle to defeat the Bulldogs, and despite an early jump out of the gate by the Dogs, the Purple Haze was too hard to squash. Adelaide by a singular point after Joe Berry kicks a goal for Port Adelaide to put them up by 5. Braden Cook comes out and says, "Hold my beer, mate, we're not finished just yet," and kicks the match-winning goal. Absolute scenes. Best rivalry in the competition by far. Brisbane to defeat Essendon was all but a certainty. It was just how big of a margin it was going to end up. Richmond to defeat West Coast. My boys are finally on the board with a win. I was very confident we would get it done. At points during the game, it was shaky, but I'm so glad. They stuck fat, they looked great, and we pick up our first win for the 2026 season. And more importantly, if you tip on the AFL website and you play the Gauntlet Eliminator, Richmond were my guaranteed lock for this round, so we've taken them off the table. I am sitting in a very good position for the Gauntlet. Geelong to defeat North. 3/4 of a game of football, it was an arm wrestle, and then Geelong in the last term just ran away with it. I still don't know how to sum up the outcome of this game. Was it just a late fade out from North Melbourne because some youngsters don't have the tanks built yet? Was it Geelong taking the piss for 3/4 and they decided now it's time to play some serious ball? Irregardless of the fact, Geelong pick up a very healthy win. St Kilda over Carlton, again, Carlton putting themselves in a position before half-time to win a game and then absolutely fumbling it. If there's any certainty this year, it's locking in a win against Carlton in the second half. It's been very rough for Carlton, given the fact that there were only one Tom Lynch goal away. Only one of his 9 shots that he missed needed to go through, and Carlton would currently be sitting on the bottom of the ladder, 0-8. Huge. Sydney defeats Melbourne in one of the games of the year. I thought both teams looked absolutely great in this game, and they fought tooth and nail. And while Sydney picks up the win, I think Melbourne needs to have some respect put on their name, because 6 of their last 8 games, they have managed to register over 100 points. That is very impressive from a young team. And the final game of the round was the Gold Coast Suns picking up their first win in the Expansion Cup over GWS. So, hey, great round of football if you ask me, but before we can continue, let's see if there was anybody else in the competition that had that perfect round as well. And there was. It wasn't just myself, but congratulations goes to Nancy W for also tipping a perfect round. It's always good to tip an exemplary round like this, but to share it with somebody else and see somebody else get up and about is great scenes. It's so good. So Nancy, congratulations to you for joining myself on the leaderboard this week for the most correct amount of games tipped. And we can now turn attention to the total tips, because there has been a bit of a shift, which I am very happy with. Still on top of the ladder is Welsh Duke. He's posted in many of my videos over the space of this channel being a thing, and he's still in disbelief that he is tipping so incredibly well. But sir, congratulations once more for holding down that spot in first place. Following him, tied for second effectively, we have Ron Schill, Gramercy Riff 78, and Team Wiggles, all of which have been around for a hot minute with these competitions as well. Preceding that, in 5th place, we have Evelyn May, followed by Skyvo and Big Kev Shendo, all tied on 57 tips. We then have Master Tipper from PA, Dusty Fendoff 4, and myself rounding out the top 10 with 56. But just outside of that, we have Purple Army 2013 and Hearts to Hearts tied for that top 10 configuration through points, but just missing out on that marginal betting. So congratulations to everybody in the top 10. Thank you once more to all 34 people in the tipping competition this year. While some would make some snarky remarks about the fact that there's only 34 people in our comp, that is an improvement on last year. I'm looking to build it moving forward, and I'm incredibly thankful for everybody that has gotten on board this year. But with that all out of the way, congratulations being said, round 8 being reflected on, it is time to get our tips locked in before tonight's game for round 9. And we're kicking things off with a blockbuster hit out tonight at Optus Stadium. Fremantle playing Hawthorn, second playing third on the ladder. This is going to be a great test to see where both of these teams are truly at. Both should finish in the top 4 this year, given how they're playing. Fremantle currently equal first place. Hawthorn just missing that marker due to the draw last week. When we look at these teams in isolation, defensively, their midfield, their forward line, they are sound across all boards. This is going to be an absolute belter of a game. Having a look at the form guide, I do think Fremantle have the edge on them, and they have. So over the last 3 years, we have seen Fremantle defeat Hawthorn at the MCG. We have seen Hawthorn then defeat Fremantle, and then we've had Fremantle defeat Hawthorn last year at Optus Stadium, and I think that speaks volumes to where they're currently at. I think even though Hawthorn have been able to find a way within that midfield core to get ascendancy with clearance and be able to move the ball forward quickly, Fremantle's press and just speed and outright just ability to turn the ball over and move that ball from defensive half to forward half in the blink of an eye is going to be too hard, I think, for Hawthorn to quell and to squash. I think defensively, Hawthorn are coming into this game a little bit too tall. When you look at Battle, Barras, Sicily even as well. Not the tallest player, Sicily, but he still plays tall. These are players that are going to have the likes of Shea Bolton crumbing at your feet. You're going to have to try to stop Mason Cox forward of the ball. And while Mason Cox isn't an elite A-grader by any means, he plays a role and he gets the job done. And when you've got players like Frederick, like Bolton, like Dudley, all roving at your feet, Mason Cox bringing ball to ground changes the dynamic of that forward line for Fremantle, and in doing so, shifts the momentum for the defensive efforts that Hawthorn can get in there. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they operate. This is going to be very interesting, because you're going to have Josh Tracy, you're going to have Amos, you're going to have Cox. Take away those 3 taller defenders for Hawthorn. It's going to be great to see those matchups going down. And then on the flip side, I think Fremantle have the defense that can lock down that forward half. We just come out of a game last week where we saw Gunston kept a very minimal impact and only kicking 1 behind. I think an Alex Pearce or a Liam Ryan could play an absolute killer role on Gunston and keep him shut out of the game. I am going to go Fremantle purely not just because it's a home game here, but they're just playing some great football. I think they're going to take this one out by 26 points. I'm looking forward to this game. 2 games again on Friday night. Don't get me even started on double booking, especially in primetime slots, but one game is definitely going to be a little bit more entertaining than the other. We can say that much. The first of which is Brisbane taking on Carlton at the Gabba. Having a look at the form guide, Carlton managed to get them at the Gabba back in 2024 by a singular point, but after that, it has been convincingly one-sided for Brisbane. And given the way Carlton have played this year, and how Brisbane are starting to play themselves back into some serious premiership contending form, there is no way Carlton get close here. And the fact that there is a bet between Dan Gorringe and Brendan Favola going down on this game, I have not wanted Brisbane to smack a team so much in my life. If you're unaware of the bet, obviously Dan Gorringe a couple of weeks back had a bet with Nick Dacos getting a tattoo if Collingwood beat Carlton. He got that tattoo done. This week, Brendan Favola has said if you can finish within 5 goals of Carlton, well, if Carlton can finish 5 goals rather within Brisbane, we are going to see Favola get a Dan Does Footy tattoo. But if Brisbane win by more than 5 goals, Dan Gorringe is getting a tattoo of Brendan Favola wearing a Brisbane Guernsey. I am I am rooting for Brisbane harder than I ever have rooted for them before, and this should well and truly be Brisbane on the side of 40 plus points if we're being realistic. This is going to be a bloodbath, so we're locking in Brisbane. The second game, bit more entertaining. Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide taking on the Bulldogs. Two teams that are licking their wounds this year, but both teams have shown some improvement and some light at the end of the tunnel for their fans in recent weeks, especially in games where we completely wrote them off. Bulldogs last week had a very strong start against Fremantle but faded away. Port Adelaide losing by that singular point against Adelaide in the showdown last week. Both teams are going to be incredibly hungry for a win here. The one thing that stacks up against the Bulldogs is out of their last three, Port Adelaide have won two of those, and one of which have been at Adelaide Oval. But I think, respectively, when we think about how the last time they faced off played out, with Western Bulldogs absolutely squashing them, Bulldogs was at full tilt with their list. We have so many injuries coming out of the Bulldogs. Bontempelli potentially coming into this game, not only with a knee injury, but carrying an ankle or a calf injury as well. And then we've got Port Adelaide backs up against the wall. Some players have been underperforming. What's going to happen? This game, I feel, is going to be a real arm wrestle. This is going to be a great game to watch. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think here, despite being in Adelaide, I think what we saw from the Bulldogs last week, just that breakaway pace in the midfield, I think English coming back in gives them a bit of an edge against the Jordan Sweet. Bontempelli could have his leg chopped off and he's still going to get 30 plus disposals and kick a couple of goals. Ed Richards managed to get through the game last week unscathed after a few injuries, so I think collectively around the ground, the midfield battle is going to be won by the Bulldogs, despite Horne-Francis, despite Ollie Wines, despite Zach Butters. And when we look at the forward half of the ball for the Dogs, they might be a little bit limited with tall timber, but I think they can get around avoiding Aliir and giving up too many intercept marks and being able to hit the scoreboard with pace rather than having to purely depend on marks inside 50. So, going to go the Dogs at Adelaide Oval, but I've got a feeling now that I've said all this and I've boosted them and talked them up, Port Adelaide's going to do a number on them. The first on Saturday sees North Melbourne taking on Sydney at Marvel Stadium. Very hard to back against Sydney here. Looking at the form guide, you can see the last three outings speak volumes. It was 80-odd points 2 years ago. It was Sydney then by over 60 points that year, and then last year managing to get over the line by 31. They are just hitting their stride, Sydney. The football they're playing is almost insurmountable by many teams in the competition, and this could be a game where Charlie Curnow breaks out and kicks 5. This could be a game where Isaac Heaney has 30-plus disposals and, kicks 2. The most interesting fact of this game that I'm looking forward to is seeing Brodie Grundy and Tristan Cherry going head-to-head in the ruck. They have been absolutely stellar for their teams this year, and I feel both of them are fighting hard for an All-Australian contending spot, so to see them go head-to-head is going to be tasty. But we're going Sydney by at least 6 goals. We then go to NG Stadium, GWS taking on Essendon. Very hard to back Essendon at this point in time. GWS only going down by 20 last week. Could have had momentum on their side had they not kicked like 10 to 15 behinds in that opening half. That was absolutely horrid by them. Some very gettable goals, and all they needed at that point in time was to have 3 or 4 of those go through as goals, and the whole momentum of the game shifts. Taking on Essendon, who last week against Brisbane, let's not mince words, gave up a lot of the football, just failed to really land any final blows at all. GWS should walk away with a win comfortably here. The Gold Coast are taking on St Kilda at TIO Stadium. They are going up to Darwin. I believe Gold Coast are undefeated at Darwin. And even though we have seen some great glimpses from St Kilda, very hard to topple the Gold Coast in a location where they are just so dominant and they are starting to find some form. They haven't been as convincing the last few rounds as they were at the start of the year. But these are games where they can really, truly get momentum back on their side, and I think they're going to win this one comfortably. 5+ goals for me. We then have the final game on Saturday night, Geelong taking on Collingwood. I'm going Geelong. It's going to be very hard to see Collingwood get up here. They did very well against Hawthorn last week, and when you think about it in retrospect, Hawthorn obviously only beat Geelong by a singular point back on Easter Monday, so Do we have something more to contend with here? I don't know if we can read into that too much. I just think around the ground, Geelong are going to be too strong. Unless we see Pendlebury back in, unless we get Membry back in, unless Jeremy Howe comes back in, we're going to have too many holes for Collingwood to fill. Defensively, Geelong are going to be able to get on top of them. Collingwood don't run a tag, especially now with Harry Perryman out, so the likes of Max Holmes, Bailey Smith are going to pop off in this game, and forward half of the ball as well. If they don't have a Howe back and they've got to be more accountable defensively, Jeremy Cameron's going to pop off, Shannon Neal's going to pop off, and then their smaller forwards like a Sean Manor type could kick 3 or 4 in this game as well. So as much as I love Collingwood, I think Geelong pick up the win here at the MCG. 2 games on Sunday, the first of which is Melbourne taking on West Coast at Marvel Stadium. Don't often see Melbourne having a home game there, but Melbourne win this one comfortably. After 101-point loss to St Kilda 2 weeks ago, losing by 11 to Richmond last week is going to be incredibly demoralising, and they have been highlighted in the media all week this week. How terrible they are for losing to a team with such an extensive injury list, and, you know, truly questioning whether the 2 wins they've had this year against Port Adelaide and North Melbourne were flukes, some people are suggesting. And Melbourne, coming off of 6 from 8 games, as I mentioned before, where they have registered over 100+ points. Max Gawn's going to have a field day. Keziah Pickett's going to be hard to stop. Even with Brody Myercheck out of that forward line, I still think Melbourne comfortably break that 100-point threshold again, and things start looking a little bit more dire for West Coast. Final game of the round is at the MCG. We have Richmond hosting Adelaide, and as much as I would like to say Richmond's going to carry momentum from that win, Richmond are due to potentially upset. What we haven't been doing as well is we haven't looked at form guides for some of these games, so let's quickly go back and do that before we move on. Essendon picking up a win 2 years ago, but outside of that, GWS comfortably, so that validates our selection there. Gold Coast against St Kilda. St Kilda did beat them in 2024, but Gold Coast do have the better of them over the last 3 outings. Geelong, Collingwood, it has been Geelong both times in recent years. They're incredibly close games too, so it's going to be a belter of a game to watch. And obviously Melbourne versus West Coast, yeah, that speaks for itself, right? We then look at the form guide for Richmond Adelaide, because I actually think, yeah, Richmond, 2 of the last 3 have actually gotten up and won, especially when it has been at Adelaide Oval. But Adelaide last year, huge turnaround on us. And again, as I said, they've just picked up a good win in the showdown. Richmond, I don't think, have too many answers for Adelaide this week. Adelaide are due to get Darcy Fogarty back. They are due to get Callum Archie back. And while they might miss Tex Walker and Jordan Butts this week, respectively, could throw their structure out of whack. And Richmond are due at least one time every year to get a scalping upset win out of nowhere. This could be the game, but I don't see them getting up over Adelaide, not after what Adelaide pulled out of their ass last week in the showdown. That was something magical. This is going to be a game, though, I feel, where both teams are going to go full tilt. Both teams with momentum, both teams with a newfound confidence. Very keen to see how this plays out, and if Adelaide do win, I'm just hoping it doesn't absolutely squash Richmond's confidence and it's not a blowout. So for me, we're going with Fremantle, Brisbane, Bulldogs, Sydney, GWS, Gold Coast, Geelong, Melbourne and Adelaide. How original of myself going the favourites for each game outside of Port Adelaide. Now, we do have the gauntlet to play. And as you will see, I wasn't kidding. We selected Richmond. We got them out of the way. We've gone with St Kilda. What do we do here? Who do we select to take off the table? Do we go with a Melbourne? Do we go with the Gold Coast? Do we go GWS now because GWS have been faltering in recent weeks? You know what? Let's go GWS against Essendon. I think we lock GWS away now. Out of all the teams that I have picked, it'll be good to get them off the board. We know Melbourne have been playing some decent football, so we can get it elsewhere when it comes to them. Yeah, all right. That's me for round 9, ladies and gentlemen. Do hope you guys appreciated today's video. As always, my selections are going to be tentatively selected and maybe changed given some team announcements if it comes to outs and ins and things of that nature. But I'm confident this week that we can get at least 8 out of 9. At least, at the very least. Do leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, and if you're new around here and want to get on board the community we are building together, hit that subscribe button as well. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.